Well, joining us today here on Primetime Local News is global news meteorologist Peter Quinlan. Peter, today we're talking about, the extreme cold that we've been seeing here in both Alberta and in Saskatchewan. So I guess mainly the first question I have is, where is this cold air exactly coming from?
So part of it is the polar vortex, was the cold pool of Arctic air that usually is over the North Pole. It's kind of been displaced further south. It's actually centered over northern Manitoba, but the influence of it are being felt right even into BC, and certainly an axis of that cold Arctic air extends through the Lloydminster area. So that's one of the components. We also have an Arctic high pressure system kind of feeding into that polar vortex that's centered over the Yukon, and we've got this clockwise flow around it, pushing in this northerly flow. So we basically get this injection of Arctic air that keeps funneling its way in. Every single day we see these northwesterly winds we've been seeing in the Lloydminster area for the last little while.
Now, did this cold weather attribute to the fact that we had such a warm January to start things off here? Because I know January is also a cold month as well, and February it can be as well. So with these cold temperatures we're continuing to see here in February, could we see that in the coming weeks here continuing on to be the way that it is?
Yeah, it looks like February will definitely be a well below normal month. In fact, some authorities are saying that North America will see the coldest February we've seen since the 1930s. So this is going to be very cold entirely across the entire continent. So it's frigid, and we're going to see this stick on probably into March at times, and then also into April. Looks like the long-range seasonal models are keeping the cold locked in place for much of that period right through into early spring. So it does like we will stay below normal right through into about Family Day. Then we'll see still a slightly below normal, but not quite as much as we have seen so far over the last while during the Family Day period. And then into next week, we're going to get a gradual cool down through the week. And it looks like we'll see temperatures just below seasonal to finish off the month of February.
Now, one thing, Peter, that we haven't seen a whole lot of is a lot of snow to start off the new year. And is that just anxiously kind of waiting to happen, where at that one point in spring, we're going to get that heavy snowfall, or even in late February? What's the probability there that we are going to see, maybe a decent dump of snow there?
Like when we have the cold, we don't often have the snow. So I think we'll see a ton of snow through the rest of February. But as soon as we get into spring, when we get into the seasons, when we get a transition between warm and cold air masses, oftentimes that transition comes with a lot of snow. And spring is actually notorious for being a very snowy season across Saskatchewan and Alberta, including the Lloydminster area. And that usually brings in heavy wet snow. We often see some of our biggest snowfalls in March and April, actually, across the area. So it does look like we'll probably see some big dumps of snow. It's a little too soon to pinpoint exactly when and how much, though.
Have you seen temperatures, Peter, like these be so common in the prairies, lately, with these minus 40 and minus 50 wind chills that we've been getting over the last bit here?
Yeah, well, we don't often see temperatures in the minus 40 range. That's usually where most of the records sit across Alberta and Saskatchewan at this time of year. So whenever the temperature gets that low, we often do break a number of temperature records. We don't actually keep wind chill records, to my knowledge, or Environment Canada doesn't. But we usually see 1 or 2 days at least every year when the wind chills approach the minus 50s. We just don't often see a huge string of these like that. We did have a February a few years ago. Many of you probably remember it, when we saw wind chills into the minus 40 to minus 50 range almost every single day of the month. It does look like we're starting to see that set up, but we got off a little bit free for the first 2 days of February. It looks like that setup's probably in place right through into the Family Day weekend. We'll get a brief reprieve into the period right after Family Day and right around that period, but then to cool back down, likely to finish off them.
Now, one thing that I've been hearing a lot this year in terms of the weather forecast is La Nina. Talk about that system as a whole, and what does it exactly mean for the prairies and Lloydminster areas?
So La Nina is cooler waters on the coast of Peru, and this is a La Nina winter, but we didn't really feel the effects of it until now. And so what the effects are typically across the Lloydminster area are cooler than normal conditions, sometimes snowier than normal conditions, but that's always a bit of a wild card. But we're certainly getting into that cold snap that we would typically see in winter at some point. But this one will likely be prolonged throughout the entire month, and it will continue into March, potentially April, and even into early May. So this is the effect of La Nina, pulling that jet stream, tugging it down to the south, and allowing that Arctic air to spill right in.
Peter, I really appreciate your time. Thank you very much for joining us today.